When I think about life of empowerment, it's the ability to respond to life versus react. Responding to life allows you to take in the moment, think about the situation, what you want the outcome to be, and then step forward. So you're actually thinking through the situation, living through a situation that you can actually control the outcome of to the extent that you can, versus life just happening to you and shooting from the hip. And you have this level of confidence in you that you know that you have the ability to handle every situation. You'll figure it out.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Alva Kraker, who's going to chat about being intentional in our lives so we can live a life of elation. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life, to wake up energized, excited about the day, to have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want, to be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's quote is from Darren Hardy. If you are not making the progress that you would like to make and are capable of making, it is simply because your goals are not clearly defined. We're going to focus on that in today's episode. The theme is intentionality, and you will see we can do it all. But we may have struggles, but it's okay because that's part of life. And it's through the struggles that we improve. See, you can't have happy without sad. And I think we forget that. Before we go on, let's review last week's action step, which was to take on a sleep schedule. It's really a critical element to our survival that so many of us ignore. I sleep a lot, and I sleep well. How about you? If you're tired, sleep more. When our kids were young, I slept a lot. So did they. I would go to bed early with them, and sometimes they'd wake up early. I'd be like, no, crawl back in the bed and let's take a nap. So figure out your sleep schedule, because that and food are the key to everything else. I'm going to harp on this next subject because I think it's a major problem. I just reviewed my life plan again, and I had a coach to provide me feedback. I have such clarity that it makes it easy for me to take action. The person who looked at my life plan also knows me and the life that I lead. And part of it was to confirm that I'm living in congruence with what I said I wanted to do. Is it easy? No, but it's possible. And it takes time. And that's the hardest part for me. It's the patience of waiting to hit my goals. Today's episode, we're going to focus on this very topic. Listen to Pat's money story. Listen to all the adversity that she had to face and what she did with it. And then ask yourself, how will I get out of my comfort zone and stretch and grow so that I can live a life of elation? Our guest today is Pat Alva Kraker, and she is the author of the #1 bestseller, Katherine's Quest, One Woman's Journey to Elation. After a 35-year career in the IT industry, Pat was faced with a series of challenges that altered her professional life forever. She was let go from a major technology company. Her husband of 22 years suddenly passed away. Their shared 200-acre exotic animal ranch had to close its doors. And Pat is now a breast cancer thriver. At this juncture, she stepped into her own journey to elation. Along the way, she realized she can inspire other women to their own feminine power and create successful lifestyles. She's the founder of Majestic Coaching Group, where she teaches, coaches, and consults women entrepreneurs. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Richer Soul, Pat Alva Kraker. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you, Rocky. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
As am I. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, I grew up in El Paso, Texas. I am one of 5. I have 3 sisters and a brother. And I stayed in El Paso pretty much until I graduated from college. So I was in an environment that was totally supported by family and had a lot of friends. And as I was growing up, I noticed that within our family, my mom, we had money to have a comfortable life, but not enough to enjoy some of the other benefits that were available for school. Like if I wanted to be a Girl Scout or be part of the tennis team or do something extracurricular, there wasn't enough money to do it. And the way that my parents were able to provide us with what they wanted was to have multiple jobs. So my dad worked as an industrial supply salesman, and he was a private bartender, and he would work the football games at the high school stadiums as a ticket taker. So he worked a lot. And my mom took in kids and took care of kids for as long as I can remember. And that's how we made fun. My parents were able to give us what we have. There was one thing that my dad always instilled in us is that you need to save your money. Save your money, save your money. And I remember when I would go to my dad and I say, hey, Dad, I'd like to be a Girl Scout, and, this is how much it costs. And he says, well, we don't have the money. You know what? Money doesn't grow on trees. And that was one recording that I had in my mind is money doesn't grow on trees. And just the fact how my life was limited by the lack of funds. And at an early age, I decided that I wanted to be able to supplement the things that I wanted in my life, and that I was going to start working at an early age. So I did. I started babysitting my neighbors' kids, my aunt, my cousins, just to start having that little bucket of money that when I wanted to do something, I had the ability to do it. Also, as soon as I started working as a teenager, I immediately went to a program where you would go to school and you would work half day. And I just started immediately saving my money because I remember what my dad said, save your money. And at a very young age, I would say 17, I opened my first IRA and started saving money and was very frugal and made good decisions on my money. What I came to learn as I started studying money, because I felt that in school we didn't really get that background. We didn't get it in high school, and the kids in high school even now still don't get fundamentals on money, leveraging money, how to earn money, how to save money. Those fundamentals are not taught in school, and they definitely weren't taught when I went to school. And it's a shame because a lot of us end up learning those lessons the hard way. So I started reading. I started reading everything I could about money. Sat down and went to the credit union and learned, how to leverage my money. And I began to learn about money on my own, and was able to afford the things that I wanted in life just because of my determination to be in a position to be able to afford whatever I wanted. We don't have enough money didn't settle well with me, and I'm like, I am not going to be in that position. I am not going to grow up that way. I am not going to have a family where the common conversation is, we don't have the money to do X. And so I was very determined at a young age that I would not live that lifestyle, that I was going to have the money that I wanted when I wanted it, and I would learn how to leverage my money.
And it sounds like at a very early age, you learn to overcome the script of money doesn't go on trees, and to intentionally say, you know what, I am never going to follow that script anymore. I want to create my own script that I can live the life I choose and have financial freedom.
Yes.
Congrats on taking the steps to educate yourself and going out and doing that, and on opening the IRA when you were 17. That's a big, massive step. I know it's more popular for kids to do that today, that those that are wise. Back when you did it, it probably was way outside the norm.
Yes, I would agree with you on that.
But it's getting better little by little, and we continue to do that. You mentioned a couple times leverage money. What do you mean by leverage money?
Leverage is like one of my key words in my life. It's leveraging time, resources, and money. For me, it means being able to take my money to make more money. And I've been able to do that. I've been able to do that through my investments. I've been able to do that by buying real estate. I've been able to do that by really leveraging my IRA and turned it into a self-directed IRA, and I became a private lender using my funds from my 401k.
So you've come a long way. You've learned a lot, and you're using advanced techniques to get much greater returns than you could get in just your basic type of investing. So again, congrats on that. You said leverage was one of your key words. Yes. What are your other keywords?
My other keywords are courage and consistency. As a business owner, what I have learned is in order to move my business forward, in order to achieve the goals that I want in life, that I have to have the courage to step out of my comfort zone on a daily basis in order to expand my business and become the entrepreneur that I have dreamed about. And consistency is very important. The habits that we step into on a daily basis determines our success. So being consistent in our lives about making those phone calls, using social media, marketing, consistently managing my calendar is very important. And I found that when I have the courage and the consistency, then the confidence comes, and then I'm able to achieve the goals I desire.
And I find a lot of people struggle to maintain their habits. They struggle to get into a habit and then to be consistent with the habit.
Yeah.
Is there something that you have found that makes it easier for people to do that?
For me, it's setting up a morning routine. So I have a morning routine that instills a set of habits that build a great, energizing, focused foundation at the beginning of each day. And that particular morning routine includes silence, affirmations, visualizing the goal or the meeting or the conversation, exercising, reading or listening to podcasts like such as yours, and then journaling. And during that process, as I finish that process, I also take a look at my goals, remembering what my monthly goals are, quarterly, yearly, and then what do I need to do today? What are the 3 things that I need to do today to get forward? And when I go through this morning routine, it sets really good habits in place. It sets habits of action, habits of clarity, habits of belief, and habits of starting from a very grounded, centered place. And I do this every day. And if I would say one thing, I would say set a morning routine that supports the habits that you want to bring into your life and start your day living those habits. You'll get to a point where if you don't follow your morning routine, your day's not the same. And it's one of practice and consistency and discipline.
Yeah, most people's mornings habits seem to be rushing out the door and sitting in traffic and getting upset, which is probably why their day isn't that thrilling.
Oh, exactly. Or, reaching out and picking up the phone and reading your email while you're in bed and letting that run your day versus what you want to accomplish in your day actually run your day.
One has to be intentional.
Oh my God, yes.
Decide what you want, decide how you want to live, and then go start doing it, right?
Exactly. That is one of the things that as a business coach, I really instill in my clients is to live through intention. And for every conversation, meeting, event, whatever that is to set an intention for that situation. Just like before we came on, Rocky, I sat down and I used my specific formula that I teach my clients of being intentional. So I start with, what is my intention? So I said, my intention is to have a lot of fun with Rocky and for us to jointly together make a difference to the people that are listening to this podcast today. And to have fun and really enjoy the moment and be fully present.
So that means no multitasking.
That is correct.
I'm still working on that one. I'm getting better, but sometimes it's hard not to, but I'm learning that I have to stop doing that. And I think it also just calms you down a bit and you're not so strung out all the time. So it's little by little, right? We take first steps and do that. So out of curiosity, how did you get on this journey to learn this and take this different path and be so intentional?
I had a number of adversities in my life, such as breast cancer and the early death of my husband and being laid off from a company that I thought I was going to retire from. And what I learned is that there were definitely messages in these significant emotional events. Right? I took in that I'm on a specific journey, and in this journey, I'm destined to learn certain lessons. So you pay attention, and especially when I had, learned I had breast cancer. I'm 26 years now of thriving, and I'm so grateful of that. Is that it was really a wake-up call, and a wake-up call in different ways, and we all get them in life. And I learned that I was burning the candle on both ends, and I had put myself on the bottom of the list. And one of the history or the emotional ties of breast cancer is that of overgiving. So what I learned is that I was overgiving at different levels, to my family, to the community, to work, etc. And when I learned I had cancer, I said, okay, time out. I'm going to have to sit back and evaluate what is happening in my life and make changes and make intentional changes so that I can come out of the situation thriving. And I just was really intentional about my healing journey. I took total responsibility of my healing journey. I did the traditional chemo and radiation, and I said, I'm going to heal myself. And this is going to be very intentional. And I just learned about alternative medicine and became really a Reiki master. I learned a lot about oils, and I learned that in order for me to pull myself in my bootstraps and come out thriving, that I was going to have to better lead myself. I was going to have to better lead myself, and intention and being intentional about my life is a key element of self-leadership.
And we come back to intentionality and taking control and accepting that life is not going to hand us, perfection. We are going to have to face a lot of adversity. And you talked about the breast cancer, but there was the other adversity too, because it seemed like it all came one on top of the other, didn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely. When my husband passed away, he and I were running a 200-acre exotic animal ranch. And we were feeding close to 450 animals, and we would breed and sell. And when he passed, I found myself with that total responsibility. We did have a ranch hand that was helping. And at the time, when my husband was alive, I was with my husband and our ranch hand Randy that were doing all the work. Well, Randy was in a wheelchair at the time, and I was still working for corporate America. So I had to find a way to make all of this work. So I was coaching on the side, and I had to make a decision of what are going to be the priorities going forward in order to make this work. So my intention was, my focus is to keep the ranch running. The animals are healthy, well fed, and taken care of, and to continue my career and continue my success in the career, and be intentional about all the activities that would lead to the success in those two areas. In the process, Rocky, I had to really pay attention to my animals. And my husband, I always called him the animal whisperer, and I had to step into a role where I became the animal whisperer and really be intentional when I actually interacted with the animals, to pay attention to what they were trying to communicate to me, what they were trying to tell me, what they were feeling, outside of just seeing seeing them physically, checking their feet out and their eyes to make sure they were fried, to make sure they were eating, but just to be intentional. I'm going to say intentional. I'm picking up my own word here. Is to be intentional about my interaction with them. In the process, Rocky, they taught me a lot. The animals taught me that it's important to be fully present and to trust my sense of intuition, which a lot of us don't. And especially in corporate, that particular value of really trusting is not something that they ask you to do. Actually, give me the numbers and what does the business guy say, and it's all left brain oriented. So they taught me that the integration of the intuition and the numbers that I had was really important, and just a level of support. And I would go out and step out with my dog out, and they would just come and surround me and they could feel what was going on within me and how loving and supportive they were. And I'm like, everybody needs a community. And this is what they're teaching me, is that I need to create a community and be intentional about the people that I bring into that community so that I feel supported at all times. They taught me a sense of, the intuition and trusting myself. I had this pig, one of my favorite, her name is Mona, and potbelly pigs are extremely intelligent, and they have a very strong sense of intuition, and I got to notice that. So when people wanted to come to the ranch and buy animals, I would actually bring Mona out to the yard, and I would watch her and see how she interacted with the people that came to buy animals. And she had a good sense of trust and a good feeling about the people. She would actually walk to them. If she didn't have a good sense about those people, if she felt a negative energy, she would walk away from them. And I began to pay attention to my sense of energy and what I felt, and I also began to notice hers. And so when I sold my animals, I was very intentional about the process of how I sold, who I interacted with, and who I was going to say yes to. So intention is extreme. It has to be part of your day in order to be able to achieve what you want. Even if it's just washing the dishes, you're very intentional.
It sounds like you were quite intentional, and, you know, you take the time to be present, and which is what we talked about earlier. And then you're learning to watch essentially what the universe sends us signals in a sense, and the animals can sense danger. They can sense the weather. They can sense people that they do or don't want to be around. And we have to look, right? We have to take the time to slow down enough to pay attention to what's going on in the world around us. You've talked about two things now that you've had to face, but that's not all. You had other things that you had to face. What else did you have to go up against?
I came from the generation that when you start working with a company, you stayed with that company and retired. And I embraced that thought and that belief. And I worked for a technology company. And at 22 years, I got laid off, and it was such a shock. I can remember the day as if it was yesterday when I was told that I had been laid off. And it was an assumption that I had made that got shattered. And I, like you, Rocky, believe that the universe is always giving us messages, and that every day we should heighten our senses so that we are listening to the senses, the little whispers that the universe is giving us. It could be in sounds. It could be something that you see and you feel, something that you sense, and just being aware of the messages that are being given to us are very important. So one of the things that I learned is that the universe actually wanted me to make a shift in my career. There was a point that I, felt that I was not using all of who I was and all the talents and gifts, and really continued to stay where I was at when it was probably time to pivot. And even though I felt it, I was afraid to make that move. And the universe said, I've got something else in store for you. Guess what? This is the way it's going to happen. And so I got laid off, and I said, okay. It was easy to take that in when you first get laid off as something really negative and take it personally. And it took me a while to get past that and to not take it personally and realize that it's really about the numbers. When I got to a point where I was neutral about the situation, I began to open myself up to other opportunities and said, there's a reason that this happened. This was not an accident. Life happens, and it happens for a reason. And obviously it's time for me to do something different. I'm wanted in a different place, giving in a different way. So I was open. I was open to receiving. I was open to opportunities. This opportunity also pushed me to ask for help. A lot of women, especially women, don't do the ask. We don't ask for help like we should, or we wait too late by the time we turn around and ask. And it taught me that it's very important to do the ask. It's very important to get out there and ask for help. And in doing that, I was able to find a job quickly with another technology firm. And so I learned a lot from that process. Is that, everything in life happens for a reason. Sometimes we're given the messages to pivot way ahead of something significant, like being hit by a 2x4 right in the forehead. And so, I really, when I talk to my clients and said, there's a lot of messages. Are you being aware? Are you opening? Are you listening to what's happening around you so that you can make a change that probably is already being asked of you, and you don't want to wait until it becomes a significant emotional event before you make that change.
I remember the days where you went to work for one company and you were told, if you hop around, it's not going to look good. You'll never get a job. And then the world changed. And yes, I think the world's going to keep changing. We're going through another shift again, where now remote becomes much more acceptable. Different companies are going to respond in different ways, and we shall see what happens. And now freelancing is taking off as well. So we may go back to, I think, a much more entrepreneurial time where people are more in charge of their careers, and they will have more choices and more things that they can do going forward. Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. So we're here today mainly to talk about your book. What inspired you to write the book, Katherine's Quest, One Woman's Journey to Elation?
In our earlier conversation, I shared with you 3 significant emotional events that really opened the door for me to evolve as a person and to better lead myself. In that process, I really kept a good journal, and I studied a lot on how to come out of these situations a stronger, better, more courageous person. And I would write all these processes and techniques and practices that I learned, that I tried on myself, and turned out to be, and the results of those practices really moved me forward in my life. So when I initially wrote the book, I had about 31 practices, actually, that I had learned that had really helped me grow. And from those practices, I started to bring these practices into my coaching. And I would invite women to practice living through intention, unraveling your day. And I started seeing a lot of results in the use of the practices. So they became the core of the book. Is these practices move women forward. They help them better lead themselves. And if I want to make a bigger impact with women, I need to write a book and create a bigger stage. And that's how the book evolved. So from the 30 practices, I took the were my favorites that absolutely have great results. I embedded them into a parable. And Katherine's Quest is about a woman who loses her marriage, she loses her business, she loses her home, and she feels hopeless. And she doesn't know, which way to turn. And in the process of getting ready to move, she finds this trunk in the attic, and she opens it up, and it's a journal from her favorite uncle, Uncle Iman, who was looking for happiness. And he was on a journey to visit 7 islands that represented values that contribute to people's happiness. And so he went on that journey. And so did Katherine. She started reading that journal. And in that process, in those values, she began to better lead herself and find a way towards elation. Many people ask me, well, so what does it mean? And I said, elation is beyond happiness. We've all in our life have experienced elation. It's like when you get your first car when you're in high school, or you get married to the love of your life. You have your first child or your first grandbaby, and it's that feeling that you will never forget of beyond happiness. And there are practices that lead to that in this book. And it's really, Rocky, I think you and I, it's a choice. And one of the things that I teach in this book is that we have a choice every day of whether we're going to be happy or not, whether we're going to be focused or not, or whether we're going to contribute, whether we're going to give or we're going to take. We are always at choice. And this book tells a story of what it is to be at choice and how Katherine every day makes a different choice that supports her coming out of her situation where she's happier, she leads herself better, she's more confident, and really learns a lot of tools along the way.
And from what it sounds like in the book and in your life, the journey takes time, right? There's no instant answer to success.
Oh, yeah.
There's no instant answer to happiness. You've got to do the work, and you take little baby steps, tiny little things, and you keep showing up and doing them. And then over time, you become happier and you have these moments of elation, and they can be intentional. You just have to do the work that allows you to get to them. So within the book, what are the 3 most important lessons you want the readers to walk away with?
I want the readers, it's also, I'll say that, is that everybody's journey is sacred. So everybody's journey, the journey is laid out to specifically teach you something. And to be aware of what those lessons may be, and don't pass up on the lesson, because if you don't listen from the particular experience, you will repeat that same situation until you learn the lesson. So honor your journey and be mindful of things that happen in your life and what you're asked to learn along the way. And how do you do that? Is that you become fully present in the moment of whatever you're doing, and just are open to receiving. You live your life through intention. And you and I are just really just high on intention. Is that living your life through intention? Is that really imagining the end result of what you want and being very clear about how you want to feel, what you want to see, what the end result is, and just imagining the end result of everything everything that happens in your life. So you're intentional about living your life. And that you're always at choice. You are absolutely always at choice in everything that you do. And if you can walk away with those 3 things, your life will change. Life of elation, one of confidence, and really enjoy your journey and take it all in. Absolutely.
It's fun. There's no destination. Like, people think happiness is an event, or I will be happy when, or I'll be happy if. It happens on the journey, and the growth happens in the valleys, not on the mountaintops. So this is kind of the reality of it and what you have to deal with. So what's one thing that your book did for readers that you didn't expect?
I hear two things, is just a broadening of perspective on life, a broadening of a perspective on life. And the fact that they can live an empowered life and it's theirs to step into. Those are the two common things that I hear from women.
What is an empowered life? What does that mean?
When I think about empowered, life of empowerment, it's the ability to respond to life versus react. Responding to life allows you to take in the moment, think about the situation, what you want the outcome to be, and then step forward. So you're actually thinking through the situation, living through a situation that you can actually control the outcome of to the extent that you can, versus life just happening to you and shooting you from the hip. And you have this level of confidence in you that you know that you have the ability to handle every situation. You'll figure it out. Like you will figure it out.
And everything is figure outable over time.
Yeah, I do. I absolutely agree with you on that, Rocky.
You just have to go search for the answer and take the first step and try different things out. And little by little, they lead you to that. I've spoken with a lot of authors, and one of the things that they kind of all talk about is writing a book is a long process. And for some people, it takes years upon years. Mm-hmm. And then you get into the process, and then you have a lockdown phase where it's like, okay, we're done. And then the whole book has to get published. And so there's all this time in between. There's all these things they're like, I wish I would have said X. Or since that process, I've learned something else. So for you, what does that look like?
Wow. You know what? My book took 6 years to write. It took 6 years to write. And
hang on a second. How many pages is it?
It is less than 100 pages. It's 87.
87 pages. Yeah, 6 years.
Pages. Yeah, it's 6 years. It started as a completely different book. The title of my book at the beginning, 6 years ago, Stop for a Hot Dog, 31 Soulful Practices for Women Entrepreneurs. When I went to talk to my publisher, he said, you have 3 books in this one book. I'm like, okay. So we're going to take a look at your book in a different way because you've got 3 books here. There's so much material in it. I just want you to take the things that are your favorite lessons and we're going to package it in its own book. So I was really shocked when he said that. And I said, I'm okay with that. I'm flexible. And he goes, we're going to change the title. I'm like, okay. And what I learned in the process that was really the most important is that I found myself trying to finish the book on my timeline. I was pushing a string. And when you're writing a book, it doesn't always happen on your timeline. The book has its own energy, and there's a perfect time for the book to be released. And you have to allow that process to unfold. So pushing the string and trying to create this book caused a lot of frustration. There were days where I just wanted to give up. And I had to come to grips with this book has its own life. It has its own way of wanting to be born, its own way of wanting to be written. And if I just allow the process to unfold and ride the process, I will be fine. The book will come out when it's supposed to, and it'll have the impact that I want it to. So stop fighting it.
Yeah, too often we fight life, right? As much as we want XYZ may not come our way until some other time, or life gives us ABC, because that's just what happens. And when we learn to stop fighting that and just accept it, it becomes much, much easier. And it's difficult because we want XYZ, but it doesn't always happen the way we choose to have it. So what are the other 2 books that we left out? What are they about?
Yeah, well, So the other two books are still in process. They'll probably come out one this year and one the next. And the second book is about visibility and how important it is for women to become visible, be heard, and be seen. And the third book is about the process of dying and preparing to die. We don't talk about death, especially women don't talk about death. It's like a taboo subject. Yet we have control of how we want our later days to unfold. And in the course of really the last year and a half, I've had, 8 family members pass, including my dad. And everyone prepared differently. And my dad was the perfect role model. He made a decision that, he was not going to have dialysis, and it was critical for him. Otherwise, he was going to die at an early age. And he said, just make me comfortable. That's all I want, is to just make me comfortable. He already had his will and all the key documents taken care of. He showed us where they were stored. He gave us the key. And he enjoyed every day from that point on. I couldn't have had a better role model watching my dad decide and be intentional about his transition. And then I had friends and family on the other side of the spectrum who knew they were going to pass and denied that they were going to pass till the very last day and had absolutely nothing in place and saw their family struggle.
And I think that's important. We never know. I mean, sometimes you know that something is coming. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't. I mean, in our current times, there are people who are facing an untimely death because of COVID. I just had someone else recently that I knew that unfortunately succumbed. And you don't know, because none of us know how we're going to react to it. So you've got to kind of pre-prepare. And you're not preparing to die. You're preparing to live a life well lived, in a life that's in order. And I can tell you, one of the lessons we learned, or should say I learned from cleaning out a few estates, is to clean out your crap. Like, just get rid of all this crap. Like, enough already, right? So we paid somebody to come in our house, said, take all our stuff, throw it in piles, and we're going to go into the piles and say, okay, get rid of that, sell that or donate that, and let's take this little pile and clean it up and put it away. And honestly, we're probably at the point again in life where we need to kind of go do that again. I'm waiting for the last kid to get out of the house so that, we can kind of go through and say, it's cleanup time again. Let's move on to the next stage. And then having your financial life in order, having your papers in order, all of that, that's just normal for life. Like, if you need to go get a mortgage, you need to have your papers in order. So if you normally have your papers in order, it's much easier to just handle life as well. So this isn't about death. And honestly, the best gift you can give your family when you die is that they don't have to figure out what to do.
Exactly.
Like, leave it laid out. And we actually had a very good episode on this way, way back when, where we had someone come on. They had a service, and basically it was electronic, and it would help you to organize everything and have it ready. And then it was set up so that upon your passing, only then would whoever you chose have access to the system. And then everything was there clearly, and it just made it much easier to handle the whole situation. Here's the reality, right? We are all going to die. So it's just a matter of when. And live your life so that you have no regrets and be prepared for the inevitable. It is what it is.
Exactly. And it's a conversation that needs to be had with family, putting things in order in how, you'd like to transition, and just being very clear and intentional about how you want your last days to unfold.
One of the things that I hear that keeps coming up, I think, for a lot of people is for the children struggle because their parents refuse to do it or refuse to face it.
Yes.
And so that creates a whole nother level. And I just tell them up front, I'm like, if you have that problem, go out to a lovely dinner and explain to your parents that when they die, you're going to give all your stuff to the political party they hate the most. And that usually upsets somebody enough to take action, right?
That's funny. I'll have to remember that one.
And so you essentially kind of shock people into saying, look, if you don't decide what you want, then this is where your legacy may end up.
Yeah, exactly.
And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are of that way. And again, it's like we talked about in the beginning, there are generational themes and prior generations, I think, especially where this was much more of a difficult conversation. I think younger generation has are more open and willing to talk through some of these types of things.
I would agree with you on that, Rocky. And there's more information available. So you can prepare, you can find pretty much anything on the internet. And, if you do the homework and you want to be prepared, you're going to get the guidance that you need. When my parents, they didn't have that level of access. It wasn't as easy.
Life is getting easier. Information is everywhere. You have to be able to weed through. Today, it's more about weeding through all the bad information versus just information. But
I agree.
These are all parts of life, right? And the reality is you just have to stand up and start taking action. You have to start it comes back to the words we talked about, right? Be intentional. Decide what you want in life and then start going out and getting it. And as we've seen with your journey, just because we do this doesn't mean life is not going to be perfect, right? We're going to face things. We're going to face challenge.
It's part of the process.
And I think it's accepting the fact that challenges are part of the process and being good with that and allowing that to happen. So one of the things we always like to do is challenge people with an action step they can take this week. Is there something that you would like to recommend people do this week?
The thing that I would say is and you and I, our favorite word is tomorrow, live a day of intention. Is that everything that you do, you think about, you visualize, and you take action, and you intentionally do everything in that one day. So you have a feel of what it feels like to live an intentional day, where everything is a choice, you're making a decision, you're seeing the outcome. It's just live an intentional day.
It sounds so easy, but I have a feeling it's hard.
It's a habit, right? It is a habit. It's a habit of living an intentional day. And the baby step would be is asking yourself, what do I want today? What do I want? Clarity is king, knowing what you want. And a lot of people don't know what they want. It doesn't matter what the age is. There are some people that don't know what they want. So if you can ask yourself, what do I want today? What do I want today? Well, I want to have a really good breakfast. Okay, so be intentional about making a breakfast. I want to end my day early today so I can spend that time with my family and kids. Well, be intentional about when you end your day. So it's really, what do you want? Asking yourself, what do you want? That's the baby step. And then living that intention of what you want.
I, like you, have found that most people have no idea what they want. Or what they want is what somebody else told them they wanted. So they saw a commercial and, that's what I want now. No, that's not what you want. That's what somebody implanted in your mind. You have to actually take the time to think, what is it that I want? And then choose to do that.
And that's the key, Rocky, because, Our family will tell us, our church will tell us, your manager will tell us. They'll all tell us what it is that we should want. We get those messages, from a very early age. And it really, you've got to get to a point where you say, what is it that I want, regardless of what other people are going to think about it, and really be true to yourself in regards to what you want. Sometimes it's easy to say, what is it that I don't want? And then you do the opposite of that.
And that is very, very true. Understanding what you don't want is just as important as understanding what you do want. And for some people, that's easier just because I think it's a lot easier to say no. Like, yes. You can see something, go no. Whereas if you can't see it, you don't even know you want it because it's still not even possible in your mind for you. And so you also have to open yourself up to the possibilities that are out there. For a lot of people, I think they limit themselves. It comes back to money doesn't grow on trees, right? It's a limiting belief preventing us from living our life. And it seems like you have done a wonderful job of overcoming all of that.
Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate that.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Ask and you shall receive.
Ask and you shall receive, right? So few people ask.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid to ask. And if you don't ask, the answer is the same as the current one, no. And so even if you ask and you get a no, at least you're in the same place. And then it's learning to say, oh, they meant no right now. I should ask again tomorrow. Be like a kid. Kids don't understand what the word no means.
That is for sure.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
That I'm always a choice. I wish I had learned that as a child.
We do. And I think kids especially don't realize that they have choices. And we've been pretty intentional in teaching our kids that they do have choices to make and they have the ability to do that. And they've made some really big choices as teenagers, especially around the way that they did their schooling and other things that they got involved with.
Yes.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Be true to yourself.
And that is so true. If you're not true to yourself, nobody else is going to be, right? You are your number one fan. And if you're not going to do it, oh, well.
Yeah, I know. If you end up following everybody else's path instead of your own, and you really aren't going to be a happy person if you're living somebody else's life and not being true to what really matters to you and living your values and what makes you happy.
So true. If people would like to find you, your work, your book, what is the best way for them to do that?
Go to majesticcoachinggroup.com. There's a tab on Katherine's Quest. Anyone who's interested in the book, you can download chapter 1 for free. And when you fall in love in the book, you're going to want to buy the book so you can come back to majesticcoachinggroup.com and buy the book from my website. This book is about self-leadership and the programs that I have out there for coaching women to expand their business and grow their capacity to lead themselves better. All those programs are also available on the website. And any of your listeners who want to have a chat for 30 minutes, I'm available to really talk about business strategy and what would be the next best step for their business. And really, make a choice, make a decision, go out and visit me when we're able to connect with you.
And I will put all of that in the show notes so that people can find the links, and I will put your social media in there too. So that will make it easier. So check that out. Thank you so much for joining us today. I truly appreciate your being here.
Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the amazing podcast that you have out there. I really encourage everybody to go out and listen to Rocky. He has some amazing, wise leaders out there, and I really appreciate what you're doing to make the world a better place, Rocky.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was powerful. I'm so glad I was able to have Pat on to share her inspirational story. Do you live a life of elation? Are you intentional in your life? That's what this week's action step was. Tomorrow, live an intentional day. Question is, what do you want? Go live it. Seriously, define what your ideal day looks like and then step in it. You're going to hit roadblocks? Absolutely. It's part of life. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy the struggle, especially for the transformational power it brings to you. Just do it. Next week, we've got Vinny Smiles Chopra back. He was in episode 62. We're going to catch up on what he's been up to and dive a little bit more into real estate. And Vinny smiles no matter what, even in the face of adversity. And he's had to face it as well. We all do. So we'll continue this journey. Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, would you mind doing me a favor and just share it with a few friends you think it might enlighten and empower and maybe be inspirational so that they too can live their life of elation? Because that would be cool. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.